Umineko no Nakukori ni. Here we go. Episode 2. Wait. Ah, crap. You may perform witchcraft to jump forward in time. What? Wait, what? What does this mean? What does this mean? Oh, I get it. This is the chapter select. Okay, this is the chapter select. I got scared there for a moment. I thought I made a huge mistake. No, I didn't. That was just the chapter select. There we go. I was supposed to press low, not episode 2. Alright. The mechanics is slightly weird because I usually am used to load being at the top of the screen rather than, at the bottom of the screen. My mind wandered back to the days when I could barely imagine the happiness I have today. I was a middle schooler at the time. An ordinary girl who dreamed about love, as is normal at that age. But I really should not have dreamed that dream, because I am furniture. Furniture is nothing more than a tool, and is not human. For a person less than human such as myself, just receiving my education was more than significant happiness. So, even thinking about love was more than I deserved. Moonlit Night. The Ushiyamiya Family Conference was a customary event held every October, but relatives would occasionally visit at other times as well. Of course, they didn't come just to drink tea. On this day, Ava's family had visited the head family on Rokenjima. The 3 people from Colossus' family and the 3 people from Ava's family had gathered in the parlor and were having a friendly chat as they updated everyone on their situations. Genji had supposedly told Kinzo of Ava's family's arrival, but he hadn't come down yet. He was probably immersed in his own research and couldn't spare the time. This often happened, so the others waited patiently for their fickle father to come down.
ほう、それは頼もしいじゃないか。お父さんのところでたくさん勉強して、早く手助けができるよう頑張りたまえ。
ありがとうございます。今は父の紹介でたくさんの人生の先輩方に本当に貴重な勉強をさせていただいています。そのいずれも学校では学べないことばかりです。
学校で習うのは国語算数やない。ものを学ぶ姿勢と態度を学ぶんや。その基礎ができてようやく生涯をかけた勉強が始まるんやで。ここをな、勘違いしとるやつは生涯学べん石頭や。国語算数で満点取れても会社じゃ役に立たへん。
全くその通りだよ。秀吉さんの教育方針はいつも本当にご立派ですな。
ジョージもまだまだ半人前や。それを常に忘れんで勉強に励むんやで。
よしなさいよ、あなた。ジョージはいっつも一生懸命頑張ってるわよ。
What's with the emphasis of the always?
本当に立派ね。うちのジェシカにも爪の赤を分けてもらいたいわ。
まだテストの結果を根に持ってるのかよ。受験勉強は私なりにやってるって。こんな席でまで言うことはねえだろうよ。うせえぜ。
When George was praised for his diligence, the conversation would nearly always turn to Jessica, who hated studying. Wait, that was not my Shannon voice. Hold up, it's much more soft than that. I started doing my Makoto voice from Danganronpa. 1 second. Jessica made an openly displeased face. There we go. As though she'd known it. As though she'd known it would come back to her.
やれやれ。ジェシカは勉強と一緒に少しはおしとやかな言葉遣いも学ぶ必要があるんじゃないかね。後ろ宮家の家紋を背負う一人娘がそれではみっともないな。
あら、これはこれで魅力的よねえ。時代は変わるのよ。男に食わしてもらうために定宿を装わなくてはならなかった時代はとっくに終わってるんだから。
そうそう。やっぱエヴァおばさんは分かってますね。
今日は頭痛が特にこたえます。
大丈夫ですか？夏日おばさん、顔色が優れないみたいです。
ありがとう。大丈夫です。でも本当に月日が経つのは早いものね。半ズボン姿で浜辺を駆け巡ってずぶ濡れになって帰ってきた日がついこの間のように思います。それはジェシカちゃんも同じよね。今じゃお化粧の仕方にだってこだわるレディーなんだから。眉にこだわりがあるのね。今日のあなたとってもキュートよ。
ありがとうございます。誰も気づいてくれなかったんで自信なくしてたとこです。
A full smile rose to Jessica's face as the results of her own studies were finally noticed. Ava smiled back just as widely. Then, she turned that smile towards Nasuhi.
ダメよ、夏日姉さん。自分のこの小さな変化にも気づかなくちゃ。かわいそうなジェシカちゃん。一番最初にお母さんに気づいてもらいたかったでしょうに。ねえ。
いいんですいいんです。あの人そういうの全然気づかない人なんで。
ジェシカ、母親はあの人呼ばわりとは感心できんね。謝りなさい。
言葉遣いについては後でよく言って聞かせます。
お子様は邪魔だってんならそう言ってくれよ。私は席を外させてもらうぜ。ここは空気がよどんでるぜ。
ジェシカ。
Jessica was still at that unpredictable age with exams right around the corner. Recently, she had class often with her mother, who was enthusiastic about her education.
失礼いたします。
Jessica, making to leave the parlor in a bad mood, and Shannon, pushing a serving cart loaded with tea, bumped into each other.
ああ、シャノン。私の分のお茶はいらないぜ。私は庭でもほっつき歩いてくる。お嬢様？
シャノン、お茶が冷めます。配膳を急ぎなさい。
失礼しました。
I don't think it's any longer in the point of view of Shannon, so I'm gonna speak in my normal voice. Though, if I think it's in a point of view of a character, I'll try to switch to their voice. I'll try. Shannon hadn't actually done anything wrong. But Nasuhi, who felt like some shame to herself had been shown, lashed out at her emotionally. This was something that often happened in the Ushiyamiya family. But it seemed that Shannon wasn't strong-willed enough to accept it that way. She shrunk back and nervously prepared the black tea. She had the unfortunate habit of making more mistakes when she felt intimidated. Her pitiful appearance dispersed the peaceful atmosphere that had been there until just a moment ago. That wasn't really Shannon's fault, but she thought she might be the source, and felt a pressure on her chest. Her shaking fingers made the porcelain clatter, and you could have called it graceful, not even as an empty compliment. The more pitiful everyone thought that was, the greater the silence grew. The more irritating the Suhi looked, the more Shannon cowered. Shannon's thin neck felt like it was being choked and suffocated by the death god called tension. Then, George spoke cheerfully, as if to blow away the stiff atmosphere.
これはいい香りだね。
Of course, the song Hope plays.
何の紅茶かな？
これは。
言わないで。当てるから。これは特徴的な匂いだから多分わかるよ。アールグレイかな？
多分そうだと思います。
多分アールグレイで合ってるよ。台所に戻ったら紅茶の缶を見てごらん。
ほう。ジョージ君は紅茶に詳しいのかね？
お世話になっている社長さんに紅茶の詳しい人がいまして、講釈を聞いているうちに少しだけわかるようになりました。
ああ、おこのぎ食品の社長さんかい。
There's no way. There is no way. There is no way they're making that reference. There is no way. No, there's no way they're making that reference.
あの人、そういううんちくは得意やな。
紅茶の名前って産地を示すことが多いんでしょ？じゃあこれはアールグレイという土地で栽培されたのが由来なのかしらね。
昔イギリスにグレイ伯爵という人がいたそうで、その人にちなんでつけた名前だそうだよ。ちなみにこの特徴的な匂いは茶葉のものではなくて、ベルガモットというみかんの親戚にあたる果物でつけたものなんだって。
そうなの。初めて知りました。そういう知識を持っていると紅茶もより美味しくいただけますね。
酒もタバコも同じや。嗜好品はロマンをたしなむもんやで。こういううんちくが味わいを深めるんや。
薬の能書きと同じよね。
What?
夏日姉さんも愛用してる頭痛薬の説明書、
Oh my God.
今度はじっくり読んでから飲んでみなさいよ。
それはいい。今夜試してみなさい。
ええ、試してみます。
シャノちゃん、そのポットを開けてごらん。茶葉の中にベルガモットを乾燥させたものが混じっているのを見つけられるはずだよ。
はい。入っています。オレンジの皮を乾燥させたようなものが混じっています。
多分これがベルガモットだね。アールグレイの香りの主成分だよ。匂いは鮮烈だから味がきつそうな印象があるけど、素直で飲みやすい味なんだよ。ミルクティーにすると香りもまろやかになって素敵かもしれないね。みんなに注いでポットに余った分があったら、ぜひミルクティーにして飲んでみるといいよ。
はい。ありがとうございます。
George gave her a small wink. Shannon finally realized that George had been doing her a favor by calming down the atmosphere in the room. And he had been doing it for her sake as she lost her self-confidence. The Ushiramiya family did not pamper their servants. So, if there was any awkwardness, they would be harshly punished. So, it didn't often happen that they were given a helping hand like this. Thanks to George's concern, Shannon was somehow able to get a hold of herself and finish serving everything safely. If she was calm when she worked, she could easily carry out her tasks elegantly and flawlessly. By the time the black tea was laid out on the table and the elegant scent drifted around, the room was completely back to how it had been, in a peaceful mood, as everyone praised George's knowledge. Shannon wanted to thank him for saving her, but it didn't look like she would get the chance. So, she at least thanked him inside of her heart, praying to God that George would hear it, and pushed the serving cart away. Cage.
ジョージ兄さんは昔からそういう時には助け舟を出してくれるんだよ。話題をさらりと変えてくれるというかさ。
Shannon and Jessica could be seen in the Rose Garden. Jessica, having gotten into a fight with her mother, now felt unable to simply nonchalantly wander back into the parlor, and so found herself here, killing time.
思い返せば、こういう助けられ方をしたのは今回が初めてじゃない気がします。
Whenever I made a careless mistake, and George-sama was there, he would always naturally smooth things over and make things harmonious, I think. Maybe it wasn't something as direct as picking up a fork that had been dropped. But that was his way of caring. Even servants have pride. They want to fix their own mistakes by themselves. Because if a guest helped them out with that, they would lose face.
そういう空気を読むのが得意なんだろうぜ。ま、ジョージ兄さんの美学なんだろうよ。あの人、妙に気ざったらしいところあるからな。
そんなことありません。とっても素敵な方だと思います。
ひょっとしてシャノン、ジョージ兄さんに惚れた？
Shannon had refuted Jessica's words uncharacteristically forcefully, so Jessica caught on immediately. Uncharacteristically forcefully, there we go. So Jessica caught on immediately.
いえ、そういうことはないかと。
そういや、ジョージ兄さんってあまり浮いた話を聞いたことないし。あれ？確か家庭的な子がタイプだとか前に聞いたかな。そりゃいいぜ、シャノンぴったりじゃん。
私がですか？そんな、私にはそんな資格ありませんし。
資格はあるぜ。何年も昔から顔を合わせてて、半ば幼なじみ状態。互いに男女であることを意識しないナチュラルな関係ってのは、一度意識し始めるとトントン拍子らしいぜ。
Jessica loved teen magazines with these kinds of stories, and she was always on the phone talking excitedly with her friends about that kind of thing. So she had a keen intuition for this kind of romantic topic. So this wasn't the first time a topic like this had been brought to Shannon. But it was certainly the first time she had noticed George as a member of the opposite sex. She was furniture, and George was an honored guest connected to the Ushiyamiya family. She had thought it impermissible to even imagine any deeper relationship, so she hadn't thought about it. Jessica was taking immense pleasure in poking fun at all this, since it didn't affect her. Shannon was doing her best to make sure that her blushing cheeks weren't discovered. So if George showed up at a time like that, there would be no way that she would be able to keep her cool. They saw George come out from the entrance hall of the mansion. It looked like he had seen them as well. He headed over, waving his hand. Shannon had to frantically try to regain her ordinary composure before George reached them.
おじい様がやっと降りてきたよ。
Oh!
あとは大人たちの話になるからって追い出されてね。
そりゃ抜け出して正解だよ。
Oh wait, Shannon is in middle school at this point, so it makes sense that grandfather would come down the stairs. Because grandfather would never usually come down previously because he's gone, you know, a little bit crazy in his cooped up study. But this is 6 years prior to the main storyline, so grandpa is still okay to go downstairs. Though he's slowly losing his patience with his children.
じい様の顔を拝むくらいなら疫病神にキスした方がマシだぜ。
そんな言い方は悪いよ。ただおじい様は僕らのことを疫病神だと思っているかもしれないね。
Yeah.
何しろ事業用にお金を借りたいという話でやってきたんだから。
That's right. This wasn't the customary annual October family conference. Ava's family had visited to apply for a business loan from the main family. Kinzo had vast resources, and he lent those out to his children. Of course, this was not money to lend because they had gotten themselves into financial trouble. How would they expand their businesses? How would they expand their business? That's... okay, I'm just going to reread this entire line. Of course, this was not money to lend because they had gotten themselves into financial trouble. How would they expand their business using the vast amount of money that they borrowed? How much interest would be attached? And how soon could it be repaid? This wasn't a loan for the have-nots. It was a loan for those who were on the offense. Kinzo judged strictly whether it was worth lending out his fortune, and afterwards, he strictly oversaw its use. So, there was occasionally this spectacle where relatives visited Rokunjima and explained their business to Kinzo. To the parents, it may well have been a meeting concerning the movement of large sums of money, forcing immense stress upon them. But to Jessica, who lived on this isolated island called Rokunjima, it was a precious opportunity to meet up with her cousins. So even her bad mood from getting into a fight with her mother was immediately cured by this chat with the infrequent visitor George.
うちも全くケチくせえぜ。金なんて余ってるんだろうから気前よく貸してやりゃいいのによ。うちの親父もじい様もどうせねちっこくもったいぶってんだろうぜ。
お金を貸すとき慎重になるのは当然のことだよ。もちろんうちの父さんも借り入れた分で事業を拡大し、しっかり返却できるプランを持って訪れてる。あとはプレゼンテーション次第ってところだろうね。本当は脇で見させてもらって勉強したいんだけど、母さんに追い出されちゃったんだよ。ちょっと残念かな。
親方様はクラウス様やエヴァ様のことを 今でも子供の頃と全く変わらないように叱られるようです。そんな姿を息子のジョージ様にきっと見せたくないのでしょう。
As Shannon hung her head, she thought back on those scenes she had grown used to seeing while working in the mansion. Even Klaus, who acted haughty towards his siblings, was still treated like a child by Kinzo. Shannon herself had often seen Kinzo slapping Klaus. Oh, okay, I was distracted by Seiza style on the bottom of the screen that I started giggling. God damn it, I'm sorry. Shannon herself had often seen Kinzo slapping Klaus, or making him sit in Seiza style. What is Seiza style, and why did I kind of giggle when I see it? Let's see. Seiza is a traditional Japanese manner of sitting used for formal occasions where respect is demanded. To sit in Seiza style, you kneel on the floor or on a cushion with your legs folded under your thighs and sit on your heels, with the tops of your feet entirely flat on the floor and big toes overlapping. The position can be quite uncomfortable to maintain for long periods of time, especially for those unaccustomed to it. Seiza style. Hold up. Okay. Well, here we go! Here we go! Seiza style. Oh my god, I'm already feeling the burn. Oh god, this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. Alright, hold up, let me adjust my camera real quick. Hold up, let me loosen up this. Alright, here we go. My laptop, you can't see it because of my laptop position. There we go! You can now see that I'm actually sitting in Seiza style, as an example. Oh, can I get myself higher? Yeah, let's get myself higher. There we go. Oh god, this is... Oh god, okay. There we go. Alright, Seiza style, let's read. Here we go. This is a bad idea. It was probably deeply humiliating to have that forced upon him at his age. In the Ushiyamiya family, taking care not to be present when this happened was one of the great tasks of the servants. Of course, that didn't mean that Shannon had been making mistakes by being witness to it.
そうだろうね。それを察して姿を消すのも子供の務めかな。それにしても今年もこの庭園の花は本当に素敵だね。
George stretched as he said that. And truly effortlessly, he changed the subject away from something that had become a little gloomy. This time, Shannon noticed it too. This person, George, was highly sensitive to the mood of a group, and was always caring enough to change the subject to something harmonious. It had been so smooth that Shannon hadn't noticed it until today. Today, Shannon had to really admire that behavior of George's. Almost all of the boys Shannon knew of her own age were her classmates during her education. But they were all immature, and none of them had the composure that George had. Even though he had been just another guest until moments ago. Now, she couldn't describe him with just that. But that was idle thinking, irrelevant to her work as a servant. Shannon tried to chase it away with a small shake of her head.
どうしたんだよ。
いえ、なんでもありません。お 茶のご用意をしましょうか。先ほどのアールグレイを改めてご用意します。
紅茶の名前覚えてくれたんだね。嬉しいよ。
さっきはお気遣いをありがとうございました。
Shannon was finally able to put her thinks into words. If you wrote them out on paper, they wouldn't seem like much. But Shannon had needed just a little courage to say them out loud. But George played dumb.
何のことだい？お礼を言われるような覚えはないけど。
It seemed he was being a gentleman in his own way, saying that he hadn't helped her because he wanted to be thanked. It seemed that George's response had been more or less predictable to Jessica. She burst out laughing uncontrollably.
なあ、こういうところ気ざったらしいだろ。
いえ、そんなことは。
Jessica made fun of Shannon as she remained silent, red-faced. George didn't know the details, but he naturally joined in, laughing the same way. The three of them lazily walked around the garden, talking about what was new. George, as the oldest cousin, talked about his life experiences. Jessica talked about recent life on Rokenjima, and Shannon talked about her recent work. These silly little topics went round and round in circles. Even when the other stories had been fascinating, Shannon had never felt particularly connected to their contents. She was nothing more than a servant, and she had no intention of delving into her master's lives. She simply wanted them to enjoy their time speaking with her, and was only pretending to listen intently, and nodding at the right moments. But for some reason, she found talking with George deeply interesting today. Even for things she would normally ignore, she felt like she could feel a kindness hidden behind the words. For some reason, she wanted to know more things about George, no matter how trivial. So she stared fixedly at him. She thought that as far as looks went, this person, Ushimiya George, was probably about average, and he didn't really stick out. But he was diligent, serious, and deeply thoughtful in a way that allowed him to understand people's hearts and care for them. But she had never been aware of these things until now. She might not have met him many times, but she had known his face for many years. Even so, she had not noticed once until now. So Shannon felt ashamed of this, and her cheeks went red. Maybe George thought that Shannon was appreciating him talking about himself, because he continued to relate his personal stories. But Jessica didn't miss that slight change in Shannon. So she turned the discussion around to the topic Shannon wanted to hear about the most.
そういやさ、ジョージ兄さん、いい加減に彼女とかはできたわけ？
なんだい、やぶから棒に。
Normally, just George's reaction would have been answer enough. But for some reason, as she was now, Shannon found herself unable to understand it unless he said it clearly.
そのジョージ様はお優しいですから、さぞや表になるだろうと。
いや、その
よせよシャノン、そういう追い詰め方はかえって意地悪だぜ。
私は別に意地悪のつもりは。
嬉しい勘違いをありがとう。残念だけど特定の一人の女性とはまだご縁がないよ。
Okay, one second. Okay, that's enough of Seiza style sitting. And there goes my ankles.
見ての通り容姿も波以下だからね。女の子を楽しくさせてあげられるような気の利いた話術もないし。
そんなことないと思います。それに男性の魅力は容姿では測れないところで決まるんじゃないかと思います。だからそのジョージ様はとても魅力的な男性じゃないかと思います。
Shannon was uncharacteristically verbose. Compared to her normal self, she was being very wordy indeed. George looked fairly pleased about hearing his own charm described, but he was just a little surprised at this high praise. Jessica, sure now that her own imagination was right on, acted as though she could barely hold back her laughter.
ありがとうシャノンちゃん。僕に魅力を感じてくれるような寛大な女性に早く巡り合いたいね。
Well, you're right in front of her. And I'm talking about Shannon, not Jessica.
きっと巡り会えると思います。ジョージ様の本当の魅力に気づいている女性はきっといえ、大勢いらっしゃると思いますよ。
She probably wanted to say, there's a girl not very far away. She avoided saying that much, drawing a final line as a servant.
そうかな。さすがに照れるね。
Maybe he had never been praised as much by a girl. George's face turned just as bright red as Shannon's. As she watched the two of them, Jessica giggled sadistically.
ジョージ兄さんもやがては素敵なパートナーと出会うだろうけどさ、今のままじゃきっと上手にパートナーをエスコートできないと思うぜ。勤勉でいらっしゃるようだけど、そっちのお勉強はからっきしみたいですよ。
悪かったね。その勉強はこれから少しずつしていくよ。
相手もいないのにどうやって？恋愛映画でも見る？それとも秀吉おじさんに習う？
まるで鬼の首でも取ったみたいだな。こういう話では男は女の子にかなわないね。
Normally, when George and Jessica got together, their parents would say, George is diligent and admirable, and Jessica is lazy and rude. So it was probably irresistible fun for Jessica when their roles were finally reversed. George also realized that, so this time, he was content with being the one who was teased.
ジョージ兄さんさえいいならさ、シャノンでちょっと練習してみたら？シャノンを一日退屈させずにデートに連れてくんだよ。どうよ？
そんなお嬢様。
When she heard Jessica's audacious plan, Shannon's face turned bright red, and the donut of smoke rose from it with a
それはとても魅力的な提案だけど、シャノンちゃんに言われるよ。
George.
彼女の貴重な休日を奪うだけじゃない。彼女が本当に思いを寄せる人と二人きりで過ごす聖域に僕が割り込んでしまうことになる。そんな無粋なことはできないね。
私も思い人とかそういう人はいませんので、そういうお気遣いは無用なのです。
Shannon's blood had all rushed to her head, and it looked like even she didn't know what she was battling about. I'm gonna reread that line because I butchered it. I'm sorry. Shannon's blood had all rushed to her head, and it looked like even she didn't know what she was babbling about. Jessica, who knew how Shannon normally was, seemed to find that really comical. She couldn't hide her cackling laugh anymore.
そうなのかい？シャノンちゃんみたいな可愛い子が独り身なんて信じられないね。
私使用人ですから、男の方との縁なんてありませんし、
ってことはシャノンも将来素敵な男性を射止めるために交際の練習が必要だってことじゃないのかよ。つまり2人とも互いの思惑は一致するわけだ。なるほど、こりゃいいぜ。
Jessica irresponsibly cheered the two of them on. Now, George was also hanging his head, red-faced.
ジョージ、さっきから呼んでるわよ。聞こえないの？
Since Ava appeared in what was already an embarrassing situation, both of them became even more flustered. Jessica was in stitches.
母さん、ごめんよ、話が込み入っちゃっててね。気づかなかった。
これはエヴァ様、大変失礼しました。
若い子たち同士で大層盛り上がってたみたいね。あなたたちもみんなお年頃だもの。そういう話題が尽きないのもよくわかるわ。
嫌ですね。エヴァおばさんだってまだまだお若いじゃないですか。秀吉おじさんとの馴れ初めを聞かせてくださいよ。
あら、そんなの言えるわけないわよ。本当にみんな若いんだから。
Wait, are they too young to hear the story? Or are you just saying that in general to change the topic?
それで何、母さん？用があって声をかけたんじゃないの？
お父さんたちの話が終わったわ。おじい様にあなたの話をするからいらっしゃい。
僕の話？何の話かな？
今みんなでしてたのと同じ話よ。ほら、例の話。
あの話かい。別におじい様に話すようなことじゃないんじゃないかな。
何の話だよ。まさかジョージ兄さん誰かと結婚するの？
That was quite the vulgar laugh. I'm sorry, but that is an amazing response after that scene.
違うよ。特定の女性はいないってさっき言ったじゃないか。
威張ることじゃないでしょ。まったく。
Ava smiled bitterly, looking a little exasperated.
わかった。ジョージ兄さんあれでしょ。お見合いだ。
ですか？
まあね。
As a man, George undoubtedly wanted to find a partner by himself and carry her off himself. As a man, George undoubtedly wanted to find a partner by himself and carry her off himself. So it seemed that he found the idea of meeting his partner for the first time in a marriage meeting arranged by his parents to be a little pathetic.
お見合いというのはもっと年齢が成熟してからするものじゃないのかな。僕はまだ一人前になったって自覚すらないというのに。
もちろん即結納即結婚なんて焦る気は全然ないのよ。親睦を深めて年齢的にもう少し落ち着いてから籍を入れる形でも問題ないの。
Oh my god, Ava. From the forceful impression Ava was giving, and George's evasiveness, it seemed you could catch a glimpse of how this marriage meeting linked into everything. It seemed you could catch a glimpse of how this marriage meeting linked to everything. Hold on. It seemed like the flusteredness of George and of Shannon is coming off to me in my reading. I'm sorry. Let me get a drink real quick. Whew. Alright, read slowly. From the forceful impression Ava was giving, and George's evasiveness, it seemed you could catch a glimpse of how this marriage meeting linked into everything. Who this other person was remained unclear, but it was surely someone profitable to Ava's family in a business sense. It felt almost like a political strategy. They wanted to create a connection between two families, if not by changing registers, then at least by having them get engaged.
結婚はね、好きになってからするものじゃないの。してから慣れることよ。感情だけで結婚すると必ず後悔する。身元のしっかりした人を生涯の伴侶に選んで、それから愛情を築いていくのも決して間違ったことではないの。
エヴァおばさん、それじゃ秀吉おじさんに悪いですよ。
私はあの人のこと大好きよ。いつまでも一緒にいて人生を共にしていきたい。
エヴァ様、素晴らしいです。本当にご立派です。
ありがとう。でもその気持ちは二人で夫婦をしていくうちに育んだものよ。そして今の私たちより未来の私たちの方がもっともっと仲良しだと信じてる。私は夫婦はそういうものがいいと思ってるの。
だからって好きでもない相手と結婚してもいいって論法にはならないと思うけどな。
だからって好きな相手なら誰と結婚してもいいという論法にはならないわ。結婚は一瞬。でもその後の夫婦生活はずっとずっと長いの。だから一時の感情に任せず慎重に相手を探すべきなの。そしてそれは人生経験の未熟なあなたよりお母さんたちの方がうまくやれるとは思わない？
それはそうかもしれないけど。
あなたは私の自慢の一人息子よ。どこへ出しても恥ずかしくないくらい立派に成長してくれたわ。バトラ君は籍を抜け、あなたが今やお父様の血を引く唯一の男なの。
Remember, this is like 6 years prior to, the events of what's going to happen in Rokinjima when Balor returns.
あなたにふさわしい相手は慎重に選ばなくてはならない。
As everyone related to the Ushiyamiya family knew, Ava adored George so much that he was the apple of her eye. But that didn't mean she had pampered him. She had raised him strictly, and he had grown into a charming man who wouldn't betray her expectations. And that's how he was the apple of her eye.
あなたの相手は決して母さんたちの損得で決めてなんかいないわ。あなたにふさわしい本当に素晴らしい女性に母さんが合わせてあげる。
And a woman with a lot of money.
今はあなたの中にある青臭い若さがそれを疎むかもしれない。でもこれだけは母さんの言うことを聞きなさい。私があなたのためを思わなかったことが一度でもある？
それはないけど。
今はそれで結構よ。さあ行きましょう。お父様を待たせてるわよ。急いで屋敷に行きなさい。
じゃあごめんね二人とも。また後で。
George bowed to the two of them, and after bowing once more to Shannon, he dashed off to the mansion.
じゃあおばさんも行くわね。楽しい話を打ち切っちゃってごめんねジェシカちゃん、シャノンちゃん。
いえ気にしないでください。じゃあシャノン、私たちは行こうぜ。
はい。
大丈夫よ。ジェシカちゃんだってきっとそのうち素敵な出会いがあるわよ。ジェシカちゃんにふさわしい素敵な方がね。
Canon? I'm sorry. I mean, maybe they're just really close friends, but from episode 1, I got some inferences that Jessica has some feelings for Canon.
私と同程度ってことは成績の悪い男かな。なんだかうぜえぜ。
もちろんシャノンちゃんにもね。あなたにふさわしい素敵な男性がきっと現れるわよ。
はい。ありがとうございます。
As Ava giggled and smiled, she approached Shannon's ear with a hand over her mouth, as though she was trying to tell her a secret.
使用人風情のあなたにぴったりの相手がきっと見つかるわよ。
Witch in Gold, Symbolo.
義務教育に行かせてもらった恩も忘れて身の程を知りなさい。
そんなつもりは。私。
ジョージはお父様の血を引く孫の中では嫡男に当たるのよ。
Here we go.
ひょっとしたら未来の後宮家を背負うことになるかもしれない人。その期待に応えるためにたくさんの勉強を重ねて素晴らしい大学に入り素晴らしい成績を残しているわ。そんなジョージと無能無資格無教養な使用人風情が釣り合うと本気でお思い？
Okay, that's being just a bitch right now. You're being a bitch, Ava. Those malicious words all poured into Shannon's ear without spilling a drop. To Shannon, it was like cold water was being poured in there.
私はそんなつもりは。
This was all whispered in secret. And with the same smile as before, Jessica, who could only see Ava's expression, didn't think it was anything other than Ava telling Shannon some embarrassing story about love. When their secret conversation ended, Ava patted Shannon's shoulders as though to underscore her message.
大丈夫よ。あなたにぴったりのお相手がきっと見つかるからね。じゃあねジェシカちゃん、また後でね。
You know, of all the, parental figures in this game, it seems like Kyrie and Rudolph are the better of all of them, and a little bit Nasuhi. Well, the best ones are Kyrie and Nasuhi. Rudolph, oh no, Hideyoshi. No, Hideyoshi's good. Okay, no, Hideyoshi, not Rudolph.
はい、また後で。秀吉おじさんとの話、その時聞かせてくださいね。
いやよ。
Ava laughed dryly and headed back to the entrance hall. Behind Jessica, who was cheerfully waving her hand, Shannon reflected very, very deeply on those words of Ava's about knowing her place. Voiceless. I felt deep remorse for my brief moment of conceit. I had forgotten. I am furniture. Furniture isn't human. So I am a being who must feel gratitude for even being treated like a human. And I am not permitted to wish for anything more. Okay, I'm still a little bit wondering about this whole furniture thing, and I'm hoping this chapter gives a little bit of answers behind this whole, furniture stuff. Like, is this something like Beauty and the Beast? where they like the servant, like, it's like a reverse Beauty and the Beast. The furniture become human. or it's the mental thing that I was pointing out before. The whole thing about, the whole, emotional and fear tactic manipulation within the servant's minds to make themselves think, I am less than human, I am furniture, because Grandpa's a little bit crazy. So, yeah, like, that could explain furniture right there. Grandpa being, psychologically, making sure the servants think of themselves as less than human so that they can perform their duties for and only for the Ushiyamiya family. For which kind of goes into the, orphanage stuff. He could have used, he could have used the orphanage as fuel, and, how the children are orphans as fuel for the manipulation of them to think of themselves as less than human, but furniture. That's just my theory about furniture, and, I just jumped to theory after theory, and I should be playing the game right now. But my theory about furniture is it's manipulation that Kinzo's doing on the servants to make them think of themselves as less than human. Or Kinzo got really into Beauty and the Beast and used his magical spells to turn his furniture into servants. So, I am a being who must feel gratitude for even being treated like a human, and I am not permitted to wish for anything more. Even if people develop affection for furniture that they're used to using, that is an emotion on the human side, and the furniture has no right to hope for that. They should just serve with simple honesty every day. But that feeling I felt when talking with George-sama and Jessica-sama is a forbidden drug for me. In other words, it may have been an emotion I must not know.
シャノン、先ほどからぼんやりが過ぎます。体調でも悪いのですか？
いえ、失礼いたしました。
Nasuhi's words, too distracted, were right on the mark. Even Shen couldn't believe that she hadn't noticed Nasuhi until she had been called. This was supposed to be the time when she had to concentrate on the cleaning. But she had just kept sighing and hadn't accomplished anything.
たとえお客様がおられなくても、常に気を張っていなくてはなりません。そんな様では、後宮家に仕える使用人として情けありませんよ。
はい。以後注意します。
もうじき、当主様と主人がお帰りになられます。書斎の清掃は済んでいますか？ 階段の清掃は済んでいますか？
申し訳ございません。まだです。
ええ、知っています。ですから、ルノンにやらせておきました。あなたがもたもたと廊下を清掃している時間で、彼女は書斎と階段の清掃を済ませてしまいましたよ。
ルナン。
それは、丁寧にお掃除をしていたから、時間がかかってしまって。
Shannon was simple and honest, so she would always carry out her tasks seriously and properly, without any omissions. So she was always slow with her work. In contrast, Runan skillfully cut corners wherever they could be cut. So she could complete her jobs with a result that looked similar to an outsider, but in a much shorter time. In other words, she was shrewd. Compared to her, we should say that Shannon, who had just talked back to Nasuhi when she was already in a bad mood, was not shrewd in the slightest. Of course, there was something that Nasuhi couldn't stand more than a servant talking back. Her forehead creased, and she spoke sternly. And yet, her speech was slow and admonishing, which was terrifying beyond measure, and finally made Shannon realize she had said the wrong thing.
ならば、存分に丁寧な清掃を心がけなさい。シャノン、あなたにこのまま大広間の清掃も命じます。当主様の大切な絵画が多数飾られ、後宮家への賓客をお招きすることもある大切な広間です。埃一つ残さないよう、あなたが納得するまで丁寧に清掃なさい。もちろん今日中にです。それを終えて私に報告するまで、食事も休憩も許しません。わかりましたね？
はい、奥様。
結構。使用人はその言葉だけを口にするように。次の口答えにはより厳しい罰を与えますから、そのつもりでよく胸に刻んでおきなさい。
はい、奥様。ご指導をありがとうございます。
どういたしまして。
Nasuhi headed off down the corridor, making a gesture as if her headache was troubling her. Once Shannon couldn't see her anymore, she hung her head and sighed. This happened because I let my thoughts take me. I might be bad at everything I do, but I should at least be able to carry out the cleaning as well as an average person can, right? I can't even do that properly. It's so pathetic it makes me cry. And there's something even more pathetic. Not only I was unable to perform a single bit of cleaning well, but just now, when Nasuhi was scolding me, I was envisioning him appearing and rescuing me. If only George Sama had been here, perhaps he would have casually stepped in and saved me. I'm sure he would show up cheerfully, intentionally acting like he doesn't know what's going on, nimbling changes the subject, and made me forget I was ever reprimanded by Nasuhi. I kept envisioning him, suddenly appearing from the other side of the door, or the other end of the hallway. I envisioned the kind of person that would be an appropriate partner for him in a marriage meeting. And I envisioned how unfitting I am for him. Ava had told me that clearly. It had repeated endlessly through my dreams.
姉さんは相変わらず不器用だね。奥様は今朝から虫の居所が悪い。 黙ってうなずいていればいいものを余計なことを言うから。
カノン君。
Cannon was suddenly there. His footsteps were always quieter than a cat's, and he left no trace of his presence. She probably would have noticed him no matter how long he stood there. The expression on Cannon's face was hatred. That expression he was making, he surely made for Shannon, who didn't know how to do so herself.
奥様も、そしてルノンも地獄へ落ちろ。あいつは奥様がどこをチェックするか知ってて、そこしか掃除しない。さっきの掃除もそうだった。見ていたから知ってる。本当の意味での掃除なんかしてないんだよ。丁寧に掃除する姉さんに寄生してるだけの最低なやつだ。
そんな汚い言葉を使ってはダメよ。汚い言葉はカノン君の綺麗な魂まで怪我してしまう。だからせめて私の前ではそんな言葉遣いをしないでね。
Cannon faced away, acting sulky. It was a dishonest reaction, very like Cannon-kun, but I was a little happy. He got angry in my place.
大広間の掃除は大変だよ。僕も手伝
う。ありがとう。でも奥様に命じられたのは私だから大丈夫。カノン君にも自分のお仕事があるんでしょ。
汚らわしい仕事だよ。僕の魂なんてとっくに汚れてる。
Cannon then hung his head and bit his lower lip.
手伝ってくれるという言葉だけで私は十分。カノン君も自分の仕事に戻らないとあなたまで罰を受けることになっちゃう。そしたら私は悲しい。
Shannon knew Cannon's character well. Sometimes he didn't reflect on himself. If I don't refuse forcefully, he will help me even if it means neglecting his own job. Cannon was a little sad that his favor had been rejected, but he realized that in the end, going too far would also cause her pain, and he gave a single, small sigh.
わかったよ。姉さんも頑張って。
それに私にも責任はあるから。
姉さんには責任なんて何もないよ。
あるの。だからもう言って。
Cannon-kun's face showed that he still hadn't completely accepted it, but he stopped being persistent and disappeared. Even though Cannon-kun had given me words of comfort when I was down, even so, I still dejected him because it hadn't been him. That was simply a sin. Far beyond any dream the likes of me could be permitted to see. Know your place. Shannon, who had neglected breakfast, was already starting to feel her thoughts attenuate. But if she didn't finish cleaning the reception hall, she couldn't receive Nasuhi's permission to eat. That cruel Nasuhi had surely told the kitchen of that. I have to respectfully receive Madam's punishment. That's right. My position in the world is furniture, and I had been intoxicated by a dream that is beyond me. I finished cleaning the hallway and went to the reception hall. Maybe hunger makes a nose more sensitive. The kitchen was far away, but somehow I could smell the delicious aroma wafting from there, stimulating my empty stomach all the more. Until I finished up here, I could not get any soup. I just had to prepare myself. Several portraits were hung in the reception hall. One of those portraits was thought amongst the servants to hold a special meaning. It was the portrait of the witch. That wasn't his true name, but everyone in the mansion called it that. The name of the woman with elegant blonde hair, drawn as the subject of that portrait, was Beatrice. There we go. That's the pronunciation. Beatrice. Is okay. It's the Italian pronunciation of Beatrice, as I pointed out in the previous episode. But I wanted to go ahead and say that again so that, you know, it gets ingrained in my mind. I'm mostly doing this for me, and maybe for some of you guys, but mostly for me, ingrained that it's Beatrice. It was whispered that she might be the former mistress of the family head, Kinzo. And also that she was the great witch who had given Kinzo his legendary gold. The witch, Beatrice, master of the night on Rokenjima. She was gracious to those who respected her, but she would always curse those who made light of her. It was in Shannon's character not to neglect rules and beliefs such as those. So she thought of the portrait of her other master as that person herself, and always treated it carefully, treasuring it. And it had become part of her daily routine to talk, inside her own head, to the witch who only existed inside the portrait. She was furniture. Furniture doesn't complain. Cannot complain. She had no right to speak her mind about her difficult days. No right to open her mouth and say those words. So, she at least spoke her mind inside her heart. Those words she couldn't say aloud, and she spoke inside her heart, and protested to the formless witch. Of course, the witch didn't answer. She never consoled, and she never laughed it off. Shannon could only interpret that silence as she liked, as though the witch was at least listening attentively.
ベアトリーチェ様、みすぼらしい私の話を聞いてください。
As Shannon wiped the dust from the witch's portrait, she spoke inside her heart.
私は確かにエヴァ様の言う通り、無能で無教養な家具です。人じゃない。だから恋をする資格などないかもしれません。でも、だったらどうして恋を知ることのできる心などお与えになったのでしょうか。
Shannon paused there, and held back her tears for a time. The sound of the rain, which had started falling, along with the chill air in the reception hall, made her feel as though her shabbiness had increased another level.
本当の家具なら心なんかない。だから人を愛したりしなくて済むじゃないですか。だから苦しまない。私も同じ家具なのに、どうして心なんかあるんですか。こんな苦しくて辛い思いをするなら、こんな心なんて与えないでほしかった。
なるほど。
何ですか？
家具に心を与えたか。あれも時には愉快なことをする。
Is Beatrice talking to me? To Shannon? The witch, who never answered or laughed, answered and laughed. My imagination? Hearing things? No. After all, the next words became a voice, and I could hear them, not with my heart, but with my ears.
人間は世界を構成する元素について紀元前の昔から探求を続けてきた。
Golden sneer. Oh my god. Oh, I can kind of hear a fishy aroma in this.
古代ギリシャ人たちは風、火、水、土の4つで世界の説明を試みたという。その後も数千年かけて人間たちはその4つに様々な元素を加え、5代、6代、7代、8代、12代と様々な解釈で世界を説明しようとしたが、唯一の真実である一なる元素を説明することはできなかった。しかし、星の導きによって現れた一人の男が、ついにこの世界を構成する一なる元素を説明した。何かわかるか
？Sorry, Shannon. Sorry, Shannon. Wait, can I get to the backlog? Nope. Wait, what? Wait. Oh, wait. These are lines that I've not gotten to yet. These are lines. Stop. That's all I wanted to hear. Oops. That deserves another slap. Shannon fearfully turned around. Hi. Right there. She existed. Not as an illusion. In reality. The contrast made by the lightning made it clear that this was not just a daydream.
それは愛よ。
The witch of the portrait elegantly held a golden pipe to her mouth and giggled. She laughed at the ignorance which caused mankind's thoughts to stray far from the most simple answer.
その男は世界のすべてを愛で説明した。それこそが一なる元素。男は最小の数で世界の構成を説明しきったのだ。なんとも単純明快にして豪快爽快愉快痛快。やがてその男の生まれた年は西暦紀元と呼ばれるようになったがな。
Oh my god. That's a clever way of putting that into the script. Shannon lost any words to speak. She thought that when first meeting an unknown guest, her first word should ask that person's name. But without saying anything, Shannon knew this person's name, so she refrained. No, surely, as a person of this island, asking this person for her name would be the greatest disrespect. Because she was the other master of this island in addition to Kinzo.
Beatrice 様。
いかにも。
Beatrice, the Golden Witch, who has lived for 1,000 years, she has already surpassed the limits of humans. and it is said she will appear in response to a human summons, just as demons do, to lend them her power for a price. Likes black tea and ice cream, hates boredom, and those who deny her existence. Beatrice.
わらわがベアトリーチェである。千年を経ても人がわらわを見て最初に浮かべる表情は変わらんな。
The witch giggled at how Shannon's reaction didn't betray her expectation. Shannon realized that she had met with a being that mustn't be met with, and took a step backward. That's where the wall and the portrait were. So even as she gazed at the witch, she supported the witch's portrait on her back.
お前の悩みは愛ゆえよ。それはすなわち世界の一なる元素。つまりこの世のすべてだ。それが満たされぬということは世界が満たされぬに同じこと。それは穴の開いた水筒に水を汲み続けるのに似ている。くめどもくめども満たされぬ永遠の心の砂漠。人間の基礎にして全てにして現在。わかるか？知識の実を口にしたアダムとイブが知ったのは愛だったのだ。それを知ったがゆえに人は楽園を覆われ人足り得たのだ。すなわちそれは愛を知り苦しむからこそ人であること。心優しき娘よ、そなたは誇っていい。それを知った今、そなたはもはや家具にあらず。そなたは今こそ人間なのだ。我が名にかけてそれを認めようぞ。凡庸の身には理解も辛き話か。まあよいわ。許すがいい。久しぶりに人間と話すのでな。饒舌が過ぎたことを謝ろう。
Without expecting a reply from Shannon, Beatrice laughed pleasantly for a while.
詫びと言ってはなんだが、わらわの力でそなたのその願望を叶えてやってもよいぞ。
This is like a deal with the devil, I bet. This is definitely a deal with the devil. The meaning of those words surprised Shannon even more than the witch's sudden appearance.
そなたを思い人と添い遂げさせてやってもよいと言っている。本来ならばそれに見合うだけの対価を要求するところだがわらわは機嫌が良い。それにそなたはわらわへの礼を欠かさず、今日までよく尽くした。
This is kind of suspicious still.
それへの褒美としてやってもよい。
本当ですか？
Normally, Shannon would have been shocked by this guest who lacked realism and wouldn't have been able to speak. However, as though she had already been caught in the witch's trap, Shannon responded to the witch.
わらわの魔法にかかれば思い人と結ばれるように取り計らうなど造作もない。
You do mean it, don't you? Those words almost escaped Shannon's lips, but she held herself back, with her final reserves of reason. A witch is a witch, a sinister being. The witch Beatrice is clearly trying to slip in through the cracks in my heart and take me prisoner. That sort of temptation which so many fairy tale picture books had warned me about when I was young, was right in front of me now.
イフもまた敬いの一つよ。心地よくはあるが、これでは拉致が開かぬな。わらわは確かにそなたらが意味嫌う魔女像から離れはせぬ。だがわらわは敬う者には好意を返す。それは人間も同じであろう。そのように身構えられて好意を返せる人間もまたおらぬと思うがな。
失礼しました。そんなつもりは。
Shannon finally realized that her hostility was rude to this guest. And she finally digested the words that had been spoken to her a short while ago. You are no longer furniture. Now, you are human. The more she reflected upon those words, the more Shannon felt as though Beatrice could understand all of her suffering.
さっきのその褒美の話って何ですか？
お前がその心を虜にする男と結ばれるように取り計らってもいいと言っている。わらわの肖像画を日々丹念に磨いてくれたことへの礼とでも思うがよい。安心せよ。対価は求めぬ。わらわは気前がよい。だがな、対価は求めぬが頼みがある。
Look, here it comes. The other Shannon inside her heart sent her a warning. This is what she had been so often warned of in all those scary picture books she had read when she was little.
この島のすぐ近くの海に岩が覗き、そこに小さな鳥居と祠が設けてあるのを知っているか？
Shannon immediately remembered it. When you reached Rokenjima by boat, there was a torii and a shrine on a reef which was too small to even be called an islet. She had the feeling that Kumasawa had told her its history, but she couldn't remember that very well. A traveling mountaineering aesthetic, or someone had built it, or prayed at it, or something.
知っていますが、それが何か。
魔に通じぬものに一から説明はせぬ。早い話がだな。あれには参っておるのだ。実はな、あの祠の中にある鏡が収められている。それをそなたに割ってほしいというのだ。
That was a very suspicious request. Shannon didn't know its history, but anything that might be stored inside a shrine would have to be something special, sacred. And she wants me to break it? Why would someone as powerful as a witch be unable to do that herself, and be asking a human for help? There was no need for Shannon to speak her thoughts aloud. Beatrice had started talking about this questionable question. Oh my god. Oh my god, am I having a stroke? Beatrice started talking about this reasonable question before Shannon could give her the answer. One more time. Beatrice started talking about this reasonable question before Shannon could give her her answer.
あの鏡の魔力はわらわの魔力と相対する。人の言葉でうまく説明できぬな。例えれば食器の違いとでも言おうか。あの鏡はフォークで、 わらわの力はスープなのだ。フォークでスープは飲めまい？あの鏡の押し付けさえなければ、わらわはスープを飲むのにぴったりのスプーンが用意できるというわけだ。それさえあれば、スープも飲めるし、岩ろうだって掘り抜けるぞ。目玉だってえぐり貫ける。だったか？
何の話か分かりません。私の無教養のせいだとしたら謝ります。
こういうことだ。あの忌々しい鏡をわらわのために割る手間をかけてくれたなら、その褒美としてそなたの願いを叶えてやるということだ。今日のわらわは本当に機嫌がいい。そなたが望むなら願い事を変えて金蔵に授けた黄金を丸ごとくれてやることにしてもよいぞ。
お断りします。
なんと。
When she heard Shannon's words, Beatrice realized for the first time that her expectations had been betrayed.
理由があれば聞かせよ。誤解があるなら解こうぞ。
理由なんてよくわかりません。でも今日までこの島は平和で何も起こりませんでした。なら鏡を割らなくても今日までと同じ平和がこれからも続いていくはずです。
なるほどなるほど。それはもっともだな。そなたの言う通りだ。あれを割らぬなら割れぬ今日までと同じ日々が明日も明後日も続こうぞ。わらわが絶対の保証をしようではないか。ベアトリーチェの名にかけて言う。割れぬ今日までと同じ日々が明日も明後日も続こうぞ。それは永久に永遠に。
Shannon was seized by an eerie illusion. The mirror was most likely something to restrain the witch. So breaking the mirror should have been something done for the witch's sake. And yet, it felt as though Shannon had to do it for her own sake. It felt like some premise had been switched.
わらわはあくまでも褒美としてそなたに思いを成就する機会を与えたに過ぎぬ。割ろうが割るまいがそなたの自由だ。割ればわらわはそなたの願いを叶える。割らねば今日までの明日が永遠に続く。そなたの願いは永遠に叶うことはない。わかるか？何を言っているか。
Organ short, number 600 million in C minor. The witch was telling her. She was pressing her, saying to break the mirror if she wanted to be joined with George. And she was declaring that if she didn't break it, then her feelings would definitely never be fulfilled.
やめてください。そんなの聞きたくない。
そなたを苦しめたかったわけではないのだがな。まあいい。愛に苦労しさを感じるも人間の醍醐味よ。 その感情を存分に楽しむがよい。だが我が力を借りたいと願ったならいつでもあの鏡を割るがよい。そして我が名を叫び呼び覚ますがよい。わらわは必ず約束を守るだろう。これならば文句はあるまい。そなたに今すぐの決断を迫るわけではない。気楽であろう。
Was the steel ultimately something she could feel at ease with? Definitely not. To Shannon, who was burning with love, tormented by passion, being tempted forever by way of escape was far too cruel a trial.
この約束に期限は設けぬが、願いを叶える魔法には期限がある。その期限はわらわが決めるのではない。そなたの思い人が自ら決める。意味がわかるか？
わかりません。
そなたの思い人が愛のちぎりを結ぶべき相手を決めた時がその期限となる。わらわは魔女だが鬼ではない。互いを愛し合う二人を引き裂く魔法は持ち合わせていないのでな。そなたの思い人は近いうちに見合いに臨むそうだな。そなたは世界で一番その男のことを思っているかもしれん。だが世界で一番ふさわしいとは限らんぞ。わらわは見合いの相手を知っている。その娘は世界で一番後宮ジョージにふさわしい。良い学校を出て良い成績を残し落ち着きがあって思慮深い。お前より美しく、お前より聡明で、お前よりふさわしい。お前のような無知無能無教養の娘がどうしてふさわしかろうか。お前が一番知っている。お前が一番ふさわしくない。お前と後宮ジョージが結ばれるなど想像するだけでも罪深い愚かしいことよ。愚かしい愚かしい身の程知れん。義務教育に行かせてもらった恩も忘れて身の程を知りなさい。ジョージはお父さんの血を引く孫の中では嫡男に当たるのよ。ひょっとしたら未来の後宮家を背負うことになるかもしれない人。その期待に応えるためにたくさんの勉強を重ねて素晴らしい大学に入り素晴らしい成績を残しているわ。そんなジョージと無能無資格無教養な使用人風情が釣り合うと本気でお思い？
Do Ava and Beatrice have the same voice actress? Like they had the same mocking tone. Ooh. Oh, canon. He kind of looks like a cat. At that time, as Shannon held her head, trying to protect her heart from the blade of Beatrice's words, Kenna ran in front of her. Kenna didn't care who this woman was. as long as he knew she was an enemy tormenting Shannon, who he loved and respected as a sister. Nothing else mattered.
カノン君、下がって。この方は。
It seemed that Cannon also realized that the being standing before him was the Witch of the Portrait. And also that she was a terrifying being.
シャノンに褒美を取らせたかっただけだが、わらわの言葉が過ぎ、いじめてしまったようだな。
Suspicious scent.
それは謝ろう。だが、先ほどの約束はそなたへの褒美として残してゆく。わらわの力が必要ならばいつでも呼び出すといい。その方法はすでに教えた。ではこれにて今宵は退散しよう。敵意の眼差しは心地よくあるが、美容にはちと悪いのでな。
ヒーロー、お前が何者か知らないが、お前はシャノンを脅かしている。二度と現れるな。
It seemed that Cannon's words made the witch horribly displeased.
言葉を選ばぬか下賤め。わらわは敬う者に寛大だが、敬わぬ者には残酷であるぞ。
Okay, Beatrice's voice and Ava's voice do not sound similar at all. I was being stupid. While she still smiled, the witch's expression began to warp. And an oppressive feeling that couldn't be described with any of the five senses gradually filled the room. Even though they couldn't comprehend what it was, they immediately realized it to be something terrifying. If you were swimming in the ocean, and something large went by in the water beneath you, you would want to escape to the land even before you learned what it was. This was the same as that!
おやめください、ベアトリーチェ様。カノン君はまだ子供なんです。言葉遣いについては謝ります。
Cannon blocked the way to Shannon at the risk of his life. There was a tense sweat on his forehead. In that moment, the witch certainly had Cannon's fate in her clutches. She didn't even need to move a finger. She had Cannon's fate so readily in her grasp that she could crush it completely with a single twist of her own smile. Cannon also understood that, which is why he was sweating, and his knees felt weak. However, Beatrice abruptly released that feeling of tension and laughed.
よかろう。そなたが求めるなら特別に許そう。カノンとやら彼女に免じて今宵は許して使わす。感謝するがよいぞ。さて今宵はこれで退散する。別れの挨拶に一つ土産を残そう。二人とも左手の手のひらをこちらへかざせ。
What's gonna be? Beatrice grinned broadly and snapped her fingers. Whereupon their left hands stretched down in front of them. Beatrice grinned broadly and snapped her fingers. Whereupon their left hands stretched out in front of them, and their palms opened against their will. It was a strange sensation, as though only their left hands had become someone else's. It felt like their left hands alone had become puppets, pulled by strings hanging down from the ceiling.
これは何の真似だ。
Ken resisted, but he couldn't take back the freedom of his left hand.
騒ぐな。すぐに済む。
Beatrice held her pipe aloft, and from inside the smoke, gold-colored sparkling dust hovered in the air. Butterflies. That glitter eventually became several gold butterflies. The beautiful butterflies danced freely throughout the reception hall, creating a fantastical and beautiful world. And 2 of those butterflies alighted on the palms of Shannon and Cannon's hands. There was a sharp pain, as though they had been burned. When the 2 of them tried to examine their palms, there was no trace left of that inability to move their bodies, which had been there until a second ago. On the palm of her hand, a small burn mark had been made, the size of a pea. Furthermore, it was shaped like a butterfly. Apparently, Cannon had the same bruise on his hand. He stared at the witch hatefully.
単なる挨拶よ。体はない。ただのあざに過ぎぬから、ほんの数日で言えよう。手当ても必要ない。それは、わらわが確かに今日ここにあり、そなたと約束を交わしたことを明日に忘れさせぬための印だ。わらわとの出会いは刺激が強い。翌朝にわらわとの出会いを夢か幻と思い込み忘れようとする人間も時にはいるのでな。ゆっくり考えるがいいぞ、シャノン。そしてゆっくりと休み、明日の朝日に我が印を見て改めて考えてみるがいいだろう。わらわは何も強要せぬ。そなたが自らの意志で自由に未来を決めるがいい。もっとも欲する者の対価がその程度で済むとはな。悲恋をテーマに戯曲を書き上げた偉人たちが悔しがるぞ。それでは縁があったらまた会おう。久しぶりの会話は実に楽しかったぞ。さらばだ、カグども。
And there she goes. Beatrice's body crumbled like smoke and blew away. It was golden smoke. No, a flight of golden butterflies. They scattered in all directions inside the reception hall, leaving a golden mist behind as they disappeared into thin air. After that, only the cold silence was left. The extreme silence was enough to make both of them think that they might have been daydreaming until just a moment ago. Which is why the witch had left it. She had left a mark to make it impossible for them to think that this was a daydream. As Shannon and Cannon thought back on the butterfly bruises on their hands, and the pain they had felt when those had been left, they stood there for some time, stunned and motionless. I'm going to repeat that line because I was reading it too fast. As Shannon and Cannon thought back on the butterfly bruises on their hands, and the pain they had felt when those had been left, they stood there for some time, stunned and motionless. And from that day on, Shannon was tormented by days of suffering and conflict. Umineko no Nakukori ni. Oh man. Wonderful Utopia, Moonlit Night. Alright, this is where I'm gonna have to end this episode, right here. Jeez, Jessica. Okay, I know you don't want me to end the episode, but I'm gonna have to.
OK OK